This life had taught her many desperate lessons, and now, in this forest by the side of a cold shallow river, she was praying to the god Loki, the god of mischief and misdeeds. She prayed loud and long. Her voice was sweet, but the words that she spoke were terrible to hear. "In battle, I wish that I shall never die, O my lord Loki." The wind blew through her long blonde hair. Her eyes, she rubbed at them. You could tell that she was a woman by the length of her hair, but she had a battle axe at her back and a long grey sword at her side. Her body was covered with a short-sleeved, long but ragged shift dress. It was the way that the shift dress was held in place that would take your breath away. For it was a belt of trophies, the tips of swords for all of those men that she had killed. She would take the sword tips. After she could see that the enemy had been killed, she would break their swords and keep the sword tip and take them to a blacksmith, and he would place them one inside of another, and it reminded her of just what kind of a warrior she was. She loved to fight. She took pleasure in hurting. In any spare moments that she had, she would sit in the woods and sharpen weapons. But now she had prayed to Loki, the god of mischief and misdeeds. She knew that she was being watched by him. She loved to show off her prowess. She loved to show off that she was stronger than the men, and she made sure that she always won. Listen, she hadn't always been like this. Once she was kind and soft and gentle. But when her younger brother was killed as a child, it had turned her from all sense of kindness. She knew what it was to fight, and now she'd wished that in battle she would never die. A cold wind passed through the tall trees, and it was as she looked down, she could see something on the ground. Oh, Lord Loki, he looked after her, and he had left at her feet a golden charm bracelet. The rustling sound between the trees sounded like his voice, and the way that he spoke to her was this: "The choice is yours. If you wish to never die, then take this." He appeared in front of her in the form of a man, and he sculled his hand into that cold shallow river and proffered to her a drink of the water. "For if you take a drink from this, then you shall win and never die." The choice was hard. She could smell her own fear. She wondered if she could never die herself, that she might regret the killing that she might do and all of the killing that she had done. The only thing that let you know that she had once been kind and soft and gentle were the golden strapped sandals upon her feet, and on these feet she stepped forward and drank of the water. It was salty to the taste, but you could feel it. She could feel her back becoming straighter and stronger. And it was then that Lord Loki, the god of mischief and misrule, spoke to her. "Now, I must warn you, for if you listen, like the bells upon the charm bracelet that you have at your wrist, the bits inside of your enemies' horses' mouths are rattling. Now listen." And it was true. As she listened, she could hear the hooves pounding. She touched the charm bracelet, And it was as she touched it that she seemed to find courage. She called to the men, "Now is our time to fight or die." And she wondered what those words meant now that she knew she'd been blessed by Lord Loki himself. The battle went well. She touched another of the charms upon the bracelet, and another, and she called to Lord Loki to help her. "Are you sure that you wish for my help?" "Oh yes, Lord Loki." And it was then that Loki placed his 2 fingers inside of his mouth and whistled, loud and long and piercing. And from out of the ground he summoned underworld warriors. They were strong and fierce. Their skin glowed red and hot, like glowing rock. And before these warriors, with her at their front, all of the enemies fell like waves that is pulled at the seashore. The men cheered her, but the underworld warriors needed to return to the volcanic island under the ground. The woman was standing there. For every wound, she didn't feel anything upon her skin, but then she became terrified because Loki had made sure that she would not die, and he had asked her if the choice was hers to use these warriors. And once she had them called, then she was horrified as she watched, because now the warriors were dragging her with them towards that volcanic island and to the underworld. Her skin was burnt and roasted, but she couldn't feel any pain. She was furious, for Loki was the god of misrule, misdeeds and mischief, and she had been tricked. She'd been tricked, and for the first time in her life she was frightened, for she was dragged under this world towards a place where all of the lava would boil and bubble, and these warriors were dragging her towards the lava and the white hot heat. And under the ground everything was white and hot and terrible. She felt it was lonely to have to suffer in this way, terrible to be in that place. And each day Loki would come and see her, for her skin burnt away from her bones, but she could not die. And with each renewal it turned to rock and was as hot as the lava that was under the ground. He would smile, he would laugh, as he would hear the charm bracelet rattle, as she would sink beneath the lava. And always she would feel lonely, to realise that she'd been given the choice, and now she was being left to suffer on her own.